Welcome to the Basketball Show podcast edition for June 1st, 2024. I'm your host, Paul Sir. Today I interview Jack Armstrong, the longtime great analyst for the Toronto Raptors, and Craig Moody, the CEO and founder of Shoot 360. I hope you'll enjoy the show. You can listen to the Basketball Show podcast edition on whatever podcast platform that you like or on the Stingray Podcast Network. Enjoy the show. Jack Armstrong, back to the show. Jack, thanks so much for making time today.
Hi, Paul. Welcome. I'm happy to be on with you. Great to hear from you.
It's great to talk to you again, Jack. And I don't know if you heard the intro song, but that was Truckin' by the Grateful Dead in homage to the great Bill Walton, who passed away this week. And everybody who knows of Bill's history knows he was a deadhead and groupie for the Grateful Dead throughout his life. And Jack, what are your overall reflections of Bill Walton's career, him as a person, and his impact on the game of basketball?
Well, two careers, actually. He was an incredible player, as we all know, at UCLA, won 2 NCAA championships, almost a third, and 88-game winning streak, and, of course, 2 NBA championships, one with Portland, and then as a sixth man of the year with the Boston Celtics in 86. That probably was their best team. And, when he was just an incredible player, rebounder, scorer, phenomenal passer. I would say, Sabonis, the son is a terrific passer as well. But and then obviously Jokic now with the Denver Nuggets. Would be probably the three guys I look at as probably the best passing big men ever, and then in his second career, brought a lot of joy and happiness and a ton of laughs to basketball fans, whether you were a college basketball fan or an NBA fan. In his commentary, stream of consciousness all over the map sometimes, but nonetheless incredibly entertaining and a lot of fun. I've had the opportunity to meet him on many occasions, and I always found him incredibly upbeat and positive, and just a joy to spend a few minutes with each and every time I had the chance. And was just a really and if folks haven't seen it, there was a 30 for 30 special done on Bill Walton. And if they haven't had a chance to view it, I would highly suggest you watch it. It's a great series on the life and careers of Bill Walton, and just a wonderful guy and a very sad day the other day.
Far too young to pass away, as he passed away at 71 years of age. A couple of things, Jack. Of course, we're all familiar, and rather than me try to imitate what you do, would you share with our fans about the garbage moniker that you use so often in a game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it came from growing up in Brooklyn, and guys would block a shot, and they'd either say to you or you'd say to them, "Get that blank and blank out of here."
Yes, so it's a little more colorful than a little.
Yes, correct. So this is a cleaner version of it, and so one night on the air, I think it was Keon Clark, who was a terrific shot blocker early in my Raptor career, and he was having a game where he's just blocking a ton of shots, and I almost let loose blank and blank. And instead, I substituted garbage, and our TV director in the truck said to me, he goes, "Jackie, that's pure gold. You got to use that." I said, so after the game, he says, that's a great call. He goes, "We got a lot of really good response on it." So I've been using it ever since. So it just comes from the playgrounds of New York, talking smack after a guy blocks a shot. So get that garbage out of here.
One of the greats, and I'm talking to the great Jack Armstrong here on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Bill had that, what was it, throw it down, big man? Mm-hmm. Throw it down, big guy. It was just tremendous, and the exuberance, like you said, stream of consciousness. A lot of times you just would listen to Bill calling a game and be scratching your head and go, what in the world is this guy talking about? But it didn't matter because it was Bill Walton saying it. And I want to address the point that you made. There are players, and I think you'd agree with this, Jack, that are the trendsetters that have transformed and changed the game into the game constantly evolves, but it evolves around certain players bringing something that we've never seen before, whether that was Bob Cousy to Pete Maravich or Dr. J, or Connie Hawkins to Dr. J, Bird and Magic, Michael Jordan. But with Walton, he was the first great passer as a big man that changed the way a big man could feed cutters and find people to get open shots as opposed to the traditional back to the basket post play. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. And I give John Wooden a lot of credit. I give Jack Ramsey, his coach in Portland, a lot of credit in terms of just how they utilize him and his skill. And, being able to see that marvelous gift that he had. And obviously he had played at UCLA, and he was the next great big man after Lou Alcindor, who obviously is now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And obviously a different player than Kareem was. Kareem was just a dominant force in the low post with his skyhook. And just, Walton was a different guy, a different player, but nonetheless, the flow, the unselfishness, the style that John Wooden had at UCLA, and just the versatility that Walton had at his game. And then, you look at what he was able to accomplish in Portland. They were a really joyful, free-flowing team that you could watch. And, he was obviously in the front court with a guy like Mo Lucas, who was a great player at Marquette, and a lot of terrific guards. But, you're right. He was that first big where you can throw the ball into the post and just run a lot of actions through him. And now, we're all fortunate enough to see what Jokic does in Denver, and it's just absolutely a thing of beauty.
Absolutely. It transforms the game and the versatility of the post position. Bill Walton, though, like you say, he didn't put up the offensive numbers that Lou Alcindor did or Wilt Chamberlain, but through his just overall skill set transformed the game. But he did have a game of games that is still historical and legendary, and that was the 74 championship where UCLA beat Memphis State with Larry Keenan, Dr. K, Larry Finch, and Walton went 21 for 22 in the championship game. Now, I'm old enough to have watched that. Jack, I don't know. I don't think you were still in diapers, but I think. But do you remember watching that game?
Yeah, I was 11 years old.
Okay.
I watched the game, and obviously he was. I'll never forget watching the game where Notre Dame beat them.
Yes.
John Shoemate was on that team, and Gary Brokaw, and obviously for Digger Phelps, and they snapped the 88-game winning streak. I had the opportunity to watch Walton in college, and obviously then in the pros with Portland and then the Celtics. And sadly, a guy like that, as great as he was, I think he'd be, even though he's in the Hall of Fame, I think he'd be the first to tell you, he would have been the first to tell you that, he was never able to really achieve all that he wanted because of all the physical ailments that he had over the years that just held him back. I think you look at a guy like him now and modern technology and the care, the world-class care that today's athlete gets compared to what it was back then. Obviously, his career would have been so much better than it ended up being. But it was incredible to watch. You look at today's game, and you look at a guy like Bill Walton in '86 when he won the Sixth Man of the Year award. If I'm not mistaken, I think he played 79 or 80 games out of the 82. And he'd be considered an Iron Man. And
I know.
considering the health issues that he had, for him to do that was just phenomenal. And that, to me, was the best Celtic team, because you think about Walton, Bird, Parrish, McHale, Dennis Johnson, all Hall of Famers, which is unheard of.
It was that's a whole hour topic, just talking about the 86 Celtics and then the best Laker team from that era as well. But my gosh, those were great. Those were great times in basketball. I'm talking to Jack Armstrong here on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Jack, let's jump to the NBA. You've got the finals now between the Mavs and the Celtics. It's a pretty delicious matchup. Two great wings in Tatum and Brown for the Celtics, and a historic backcourt for Dallas in Doncic and Kyrie. Give some reflections on the semis and what your thoughts are on what's going to take place in the finals.
Well, I think from the semis, I think if you look at the Celtics road, they obviously had a lot easier road to get there. They didn't have Porzingis, but nonetheless, I don't think they were tested the way they would have been tested maybe if they had to go through a healthy Milwaukee or a healthy Philadelphia or a healthy Knicks, and they didn't have to face any of those teams in that state. So that worked out well for them. But I think the Celtics were the best team in the league all year. So now if they have a healthy Porzingis, and you look at Holiday and White in that backcourt, and you mentioned they're two great players, and Tatum and Brown, and then you got Porzingis, and they have solid role players coming off the bench. They're the best team, and they should win this. On the other hand, Dallas made some really astute personnel moves at the trade deadline that really upgraded their quality of play and intensity and toughness defensively. And they have two of the great closers in the game. I mean, Kyrie Irving, in his prime, I don't know if he's in his prime anymore, but he's still A-, B+, maybe compared to maybe what he was in Cleveland. But he's still a sensational closer, as good as they get in this era of finishing at the rim, and the creativity, the tightness of his handle. Just a sensational player. And then, obviously, Luka Doncic is a big, strong, husky, physical scorer who can get his shot off against anybody. And, if you're a Dallas fan, all you want is in these games is, hey, can we hang in there? Can we get it to the last 2, 3, 4 minutes of the game? And if you do, arguably, I think your closers might be better than theirs. On the other hand, I think Boston's a more sound team in terms of both ends of the floor. But, I understand why Boston's favored in the series. I totally get it. On the other hand, I could see Dallas making this a great series.
I could too, Jack. And here to me is the potential difference maker for Boston against Dallas as opposed to the Timberwolves against Dallas. And that's the defensive abilities of White and Holiday in the backcourt for Boston. Like, they're two really great defenders. And I would say, from my standpoint, really intelligent on-ball and off-ball defenders that you're never going to stop Doncic and you're never going to stop Kyrie totally. But the ability that they might have, and that's the thing, they might have, is the ability to make Luka and Kyrie a bit more uncomfortable than the T-Wolves were able to make them.
Well, to your point, uncomfortable, to me, I look at it and I say uncomfortable is getting them to be volume shooters, taking their shooting percentage down, and then suddenly those possessions become empty possessions. So, I think that's a big part of the advantage and of what White and Holiday bring to the Celtics is that ability to put the clamps on opposing perimeter players, and yet it allows Tatum and Brown to shine in their respective positions on the offensive end, and yet those guys are sound defenders. And then you have Porzingis. He's going to get you a few blocks. It's going to be a meaningful series to him if he's healthy because he played in Dallas prior. And there's a lot at stake. And, the Celtics have been one of those teams, though, you shake your head sometimes, even when the competition wasn't great, where they'd kick away a game or two, where they just you shake your head. And literally, I mean, Indiana could have won 3 of the 4 games in that series. And
that was the oddest 4-game sweep I've ever seen. Because to your point, they could have easily been up. Not out of the realm of possibility that Indiana could have been up 3-1.
You're right. On the other side, they didn't.
Exactly.
So there's something to that too, where there are certain teams that live dangerously and live right near the third rail, the proverbial third rail, but they don't. Eventually, they don't go there. They get close to it, but they don't go there, and that's the Celtics. And to me, there'll probably be a game, maybe even 2, in this series where you shake your head. And now I think of Dallas, because they come from the tougher conference. They've had a tougher road to get there. I think less time off, and I don't like the idea of us waiting till Thursday for this to start. But I totally get it, because this is all tied into network television in the U.S. and ABC has the rights, and they just lock in the 7 dates, and there's no flexibility. So I get it. It's a made-for-TV event. On the other side, I think it'll impact in some ways the quality and the basketball sharpness maybe in game 1.
Very well could, but it's an intriguing series. It truly is the arrival of the new guard of the NBA, Jack. The old guard has, I think we're waving to them in the rearview mirror. We've got the new stars. We've got the new teams. So it's an exciting, dynamic time. Jack Armstrong, thank you so much for making time today. Really want to have you back on in the near future and talk together about the Raptors and what their off season's looking like and what you think will be the way it looks next season for Canada's team. Jack, thanks so much.
Paul, thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy. And, hey, let's go Oilers, right? You got a lot of excitement out there. So,
oh, my gosh.
Let's finish this thing off. I was watching last night. I'm excited for the Oilers, and I'm rooting for them.
So glad to hear that. And for a Buffalo guy to be saying that, Jack, we really appreciate it. And, yeah, the town's lit up, and I don't think there was much rest for a lot of people last night. Jack Armstrong, all the best.
Thanks, Paul.
Welcome back to the Basketball Show. I'm your host, Paul Sir, and I'm pleased to be joined by the CEO and founder of Shoot 360, Craig Moody. Craig, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for making time.
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be on.
Craig, I had the opportunity to meet you yesterday at the grand opening of the Shoot 360 facility in Sherwood Park, the first of its kind in Canada. I think let's start at the beginning. Your background in basketball, where does your passion come from? Because obviously you had to have that in order to develop this very interesting program, which I'm very excited to have our listeners learn more about. So let's start, Craig, with your background in basketball.
Sure. Well, I think I'm probably like every other kid that grew up. I started playing basketball fairly young, kind of more organized basketball in junior high, played high school, and played some college basketball. From there, I went into to coaching at the high school level and eventually matriculated to the college level. So a fairly long journey over, 20 plus years of coaching.
So you were playing, then you coached, and you explained this to me yesterday in just real briefly. You touched on it, but talk about where the inspiration from Shoot 360 came from.
Sure. What happened, Paul, is that I retired out of coaching. I had some business interests with my father that I needed to be involved with more regularly. And when I came out, I was my oldest children were getting to the age where they were starting to compete at kind of a higher level, I guess, some club basketball and that kind of stuff. And I was interested in getting some training for them. And because they had kind of grown up in the gym, I'd never really been out and looked at that too hard. But as I got out there, I realized that there weren't very many opportunities for kids to train. And the game really hadn't innovated very much. People kind of went in the gym and did the same things over and over. And literally, Paul, what happened is my oldest son was upstairs in our kind of bonus room or TV room, and he had his team over, and it was a beautiful day outside, and we had a hoop out on a large driveway. I said, why don't you guys go out and play on the court? It's a beautiful day. They were playing video games, a game 2K, and they said, nah, we'd rather play video games. And I was kind of taken back by that for a minute, and I walked out of our TV room and looked at my wife and said, if I could create a gym like a video game, I'd have it made. And so that resonated with me for a while. I knew about some of the emerging technologies that were in the market that maybe I thought could be done a little differently. And so I ultimately rented a warehouse and started building a prototype for it.
I'm talking with Craig Moody, the founder and CEO of Shoot 360 here on the Basketball Show. Okay, Craig, so that's a great foundation to work from. Now talk about, if you don't mind, how you gathered, integrated, and planned on how to utilize this technology that you've developed.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at, Paul, how you just said it. I think from the beginning, I knew that the kind of main skills that every player has to have are basically being able to shoot the ball, pass it, and handle it. And especially in today's game, right, where everybody talks about stretch 4 and stretch 5, a lot of people will even say it should be a positionless game. So what ended up happening was we started with the basic ball handling and shooting, very archaic compared to what we did today. But we knew that from our partner on the shooting side, what was important around shooting was arc depth and left-right. And we knew that ball handling ultimately was just practicing the skill and doing enough repetitions in various ways to continue to improve. And then what ultimately happened, Paul, is that when we first started, everything was 2D in the shooting side, which is where we were really using the machine vision. And I think this is important for our listeners. The technology that we actually use is machine vision because it's the most accurate. It's what the medical industry uses. It's what the military uses. And now we're sitting in sports. But ultimately, we started out with 2D, two-dimensional, meaning we could only see the ball straight on. And so we had limited information because we couldn't see it all over the court accurately, meaning we could see it, but because it wasn't 3D, we couldn't, by changing angles, it made the data inaccurate. In 2016, we did a joint venture with our partner, Noah Basketball and Carnegie Mellon, and we developed the 3D part of it, which was really the turning point for us, because we were able to grab the ball anywhere in space in a gym, and that opened up passing, so we could start looking at reaction time and decision making and velocity and power behind the ball. And then in shooting, we're now able to grab the ball anywhere where a player's shooting, and that's arc depth and left right. And now we're moving into all of the pose recognition and mechanics, kinematic and kinetic pieces as well.
Craig, I think for a lot of people, that's going to be technical talk that might resonate and might sound awfully complicated. But when you boil it all down, what you have just described from my vantage point is everything that technically goes into a shot, for instance.
Yeah.
But now you have the opportunity to measure it, and by measuring it, you are able to course correct and help the shooter, help the person working on their shot understand, and then start making those minor adjustments that can make the difference between becoming an adequate or a good shooter.
Yeah, that's exactly right how you said it, is that because of the way that we do our training, players are getting instantaneous feedback and they can make those corrections in real time. So, which is much better, as you know, than getting the results after your workout and then trying to go back and kind of mentally make those adjustments. They're doing it in real time, which essentially people call it muscle memory, but it's really myelin or the tendons that they're using. They get thicker and they react faster and in the same exact movement over time.
You know, you just destroyed and dismantled one of the oldest terms used in basketball for me here, Craig. That's what I've grown up and lived with all my whole life is muscle memory, and you've just disassembled it into what it really is.
Yeah, well, it's like great quarterbacks and great shooters, and you know you and your own son were fabulous shooters, and it's really repetitions, right? So, but it's the right kind of repetition. And if you look at philosophically and kind of how we view it is, if you took an example that it took 10 years to become an elite shooter, with our technology and the feedback that you're getting, we're shrinking that way down with the same work ethic into maybe a 2 or 3 year period.
I think that's such a great differentiation that you just described to Craig, because you and I we haven't had a chance to talk much, but we have a very, I think, like-minded understanding and perspective on what it takes to become not just a great shooter, but a great fundamentally sound basketball player. And it is the right repetitions done over and over in an amount, I'm stumbling a little bit here, but in enough volume over enough time that will turn the corner for players to become proficient and great in the areas that they need to become an excellent basketball player.
Yeah, that's right. And what's exciting to me, Paul, is that because we've really done the work on the science around what the trajectory of the ball is, the depth of the ball, and, you know, the left-right side of it. Now, because we have that and we know what that is, now we can go back to the other side of the ball, which is where all the mechanics are and all the ground force and balance and, you know, follow through and all the things that we talk about. And it no longer becomes subjective. It starts to become objective. So now we're able to address both sides of the ball, which we'll be launching that piece of it in early 2025.
Wow, another major step forward. Now, and I'm talking with Craig Moody, the CEO and founder of Shoot 360 here on the Basketball Show. Craig, I think with the explosive growth of basketball for both boys and girls, evolving into men and women, you and I, again, like-minded from the standpoint of the emphasis, I think, has become so heavily weighted towards games, playing games. And I was one of the founders of club basketball in Edmonton back in the mid-90s with a couple of friends of mine, Phil Allen and David Dorward. And we were one of the first two clubs to get started in Edmonton. And the idea behind it was to provide an off-season from the junior high school season, off-season opportunity for kids to start to play. AAU was around. It just wasn't around at the level that it's at now. What it's evolved into is just a massive proliferation of mostly for-profit organizations and tournaments and events that form into this massive ecosystem of games, as opposed to something that you just cannot avoid if you want to be a good player. And that's the time in the gym when nobody's watching you, doing the repetitions as you so accurately describe them, doing them the right way over and over and over again. Does what I just described echo the thoughts and one of the motivations of what Shoot 360 is trying to accomplish?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you only need to look at the rest of the world to see that kind of what we're doing in the U.S., though we're still the gold standard for basketball in a lot of ways in North America. And Canada now has had a huge run at this as well. But the bottom line is that the skill at the end of the day is going to win out. And unfortunately, we put so much emphasis on playing And we think that that's the way kids are going to get discovered or get better, or they just need to compete, that they don't spend any time developing their skill. And I've seen it, with players that I had in college and high school, even junior high. They just don't get a lot better. They get better athletically, and they do things that are really skilled that way. But in terms of just being able to pass, handle the ball, shoot it really well, we just have not had the right kind of focus and emphasis on that, and we need to get back to it.
Well, I agree with you. And what I find interesting about what you're describing is actually there are a number of skill-based businesses, and I call them businesses, that bring kids in large volumes and run them through drills over and over again. But there's two flaws to this. A, large groups with limited reps give you a false positive that what you're really working hard. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, most coaches can't coach shooting. Yeah. Bottom line. Yeah. They're very, and what kids, and I mentioned this to you, where I feel the worst for kids when they're learning how to shoot, oftentimes they're playing for a school team, a club team, and they're getting different voices saying, you do this, you do this. No, most people can't teach shooting. What you've done is you've taken the science of shooting and turned it into the art of shooting and blended that together, giving people the right tools to evaluate and improve on their shooting, ball handling, and passing.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Paul. And I think, just the little things, right? Like just becoming a really good form shooter, right? Like how many times do you see that today? It's just people don't do the little things that made great shooters. Now, I will say that at the highest levels, there are some fantastic shooters, but what people don't see is all the work that they're putting in and the technology that they're using today, right, to give them an advantage. So there's no doubt that we really need – we're everywhere in the world. If we really want this game to grow and for kids to be excited about playing it, we have to give them the confidence by them developing the skill. And when they develop the skill and they have more confidence, they're going to play more and they're going to play longer.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we have to wrap up. But what I would say would be now to, once in a while you meet somebody who has the vision, but then has the ambition to go with it, to develop something and to bring other partners in to help that journey mature into something that can do special things for a lot of people. And Craig, you certainly have done that with Shoot 360.
Well, thank you, Paul. That's probably more credit than I deserve, but I love the game and I love the relationships, like I said, that I've built over the years. And I think to me, it's the best game in the world, and I'd love to be a part of helping it grow worldwide.
Well, you've got a foothold, a great foothold in Canada now with the first Shoot 360 in Sherwood Park, and I encourage people, go check it out, because when you walk in, you're going to get blown away at what's being offered and what it can do for your child or for yourself. But Shoot 360 is something special in the basketball world that I think is game changing. Craig Moody, founder, CEO of Shoot 360. Thank you so much for joining me on the Basketball Show.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and appreciate you taking time to listen to our story.